Today has turned into a pie making day. I've made a savoury pie and now I'm finishing off making an apple pie. And I thought I'd tell you a little wee bit about Orkney. Orkney is made up of several islands. I live on what's called mainland, which is the largest one, and it is split into two halves. Half of it is called West Mainland, half East Mainland, and we have Kirkwall, the capital city, in the centre. Capital city? It is a city, it's not the capital city, obviously, but it's the capital of Orkney. And Orkney's got a few names, or Orkney Mainland certainly. One of it being Pomona, which is appropriate because Pomona was the Roman goddess of orchard fruits, hence the apple pie. Now, but Pomona's never really been truly its name. Pomona was a mistranslation by a Scottish historian, and I think it was in the 16th century. I'm getting ahead of myself here. It was actually called Mainland, and it always has been by locals, but the name Mainland isn't really, it's based upon a Norse word, which I believe, don't quote me on the pronunciation of this, is Meganland or something like that. Because Orkney is more Norse than Scottish. Before it was called Mainland, it was called Rossi. That's Rossi with an H. H-R-O-S-S-E-Y, I believe. And we have one of our ferries, it's called the Rossi. And it's like a silent H. And it means horse island, I believe. But like I said, Orkney is more Norse than Scottish. Up until the 1400s, it was actually owned by Norway. And it was given to Scotland as part of a dowry in 1460 something. But it was never Scotland up until that. Well, it obviously before the Vikings came over and settled, it was obviously part of the British Isles or whatever they were at the time. It was never really Celtic much up here. It was mostly Pictish, and Orkney's a funny place. It's in the back of Beyond. So anyway, it was owned by Norway, and it was ruled over by the bishops of Orkney and the Earls of Orkney. In fact, I'm trying to remember how to make a crimping on a pie now. Our cathedral in Kirkwall is called St Magnus Cathedral, and I cannot for the life of me think how to crimp this pie today. It's called St Magnus Cathedral, and it is named after a saint, obviously, St Magnus Erlandsson, I think, and his bones are actually in one of the pillars of the cathedral as well. They were discovered not that long ago, actually, maybe it's 100 years ago, in the walls of the cathedral. And he was martyred on one of the smaller islands called Egglesay by his uncle, who wanted to rule Orkney. He wanted to be the Earl. So, yeah, more Norwegian than anything else. So a lot of our words on Orkney and name places are Norse rather than Scottish. And the Orkadian accent is very unusual. It's not well, Maine and Orkney is a bit more Scottish, but once you get onto some of the more outer islands, they're a bit more, they have more of a Scandinavian lilt. It's the only way I can explain it. And there's lots of place names that are Norse. I'm drawing a blank right now. But yeah. Oh, and for anybody who was wondering how to pronounce some of the names, like Egglesey and such like, it's Say. So, North Ronaldsay. Although with my accent, it tends to come out as North Ronaldsay, simply because I'm not Orcadian, but it's North Ronaldsay. So I have apple pie now ready for the oven, all done. Whoops, and I'm throwing my pastry brush around. And, oh, I forgot to make pastry leaves. I gotta make pastry leaves. Yes, so we have a rare breed sheep called the North Ronaldsay. Notice I said say there, but actually it's North Ronaldsay. And it lives on the island of North Ronaldsay. And it's really unusual in that it lives on predominantly seaweed. And there's a big wall around the island of North Ronaldsay above the tide line to keep the sheep out of your garden. And sometimes people have tried to, you know, you keep them off the beach. They don't thrive very well off the beach. I think if you were to breed them elsewhere and raise them on pasture, they'd probably be okay. But I found where if you take some of the sheep that are used to eating the seaweed and try to raise them all year round on pasture and in the fields, they don't do well. They get quite sickly. They are so used to eating the seaweed. But apparently it makes, if you're into that, if you're a meat eater, apparently it makes very nice meat. But I've never actually tried it, so I couldn't comment on that. I've got a lot of leaves here. But the fleece is lovely. I have several whole fleeces upstairs, but I have a couple of projects earmarked for. I can get at least 2, probably 3 sweaters from the amount of fleece I have upstairs stashed. It's getting around to actually spinning a sweater's quantity. It's just finding the time to do. But I do plan to make a Wintersole sweater, which is a Jennifer Steingast pattern in various shades of grey, with the palest of the fleece and the darkest of the fleece as the contrast colours. And I would also like to do another design that I can't think what it's called off the top of my head, in the more beigey colours rather than the grey colours. So I do have plans for it, and it is beautiful fleece. It's got a very, very soft undercoat, and then it has the longer guard fibres, which can be prickly, but it depends on the fleece. The ones that I've got, they're actually really not prickly, and I don't do really, really prickly yarns. I can't cope with something as prickly as Let Lopey, for example. I would reserve that for something like a hat. But North Ronaldsay is definitely within my wear against, wear it as a sweater sort of prickle factor. So yep, my leaves. I'm going to stick them on pie. Don't know how many leaves I've got. I'm just going to slap them on here. This is only for us, not in one sitting. Obviously, this is a very big pie. Pop a lot of leaves, make some space. I've got more leaves left. Yeah, my pie's never the prettiest, but they do taste good. And now I can get these in the oven, and I think I might do some spinning or knitting, not sure yet, but I will do one or the other.